You think you are calm under pressure. You think you are the kind of person who doesn't panic when things fall apart. But what if that calm isn't peace at all? What if it's just a system your brain built to survive and never turned off? There's a certain type of person who looks completely fine from the outside. They laugh easily. They adapt quickly. They handle chaos with a strange kind of quiet control. In a crisis, they don't freeze. They don't overreact. They become focused, precise, almost mechanical, and people admire that. They call it resilience. They call it strength. But watch a little closer. Not during the crisis, but during normal moments. Watch how they enter a room. Their eyes scan everything without effort. They notice who's there, where the exits are, what the move feels like. Not consciously, just automatically. Watch how they sit down. They hesitate for a second. They adjust their position. They prefer facing the door, not because they think about it, but because something inside them feels off if they don't. Watch how they react when a small plan changes. A delay, a cancellation, a tiny disruption. Something that shouldn't matter that much. And yet, there's tension. A subtle irritation. A quiet loss of balance. It doesn't look like fear. It looks like control. And that's the illusion, because what you're seeing is not personality. It's not just being detail-oriented or good under pressure. It's a system running in the background. A system designed for a version of life where unpredictability meant danger, not inconvenience. The strange part is, this system works. That's why it stays. It helps you react fast. It helps you stay composed. It helps you navigate difficult situations better than most people. But it also comes with a cost. A constant, low-level tension, a need to anticipate, a difficulty fully relaxing, even when nothing is wrong. And over time, you stop noticing it. It just becomes who you think you are. But it isn't who you are. God is just a system you learn to survive with. Most people think they struggle because they lack discipline. They blame inconsistency. They blame distraction. They tell themselves they just need to try harder. But if you look closely, the problem isn't effort. It's the system underneath. The effort. Think about how a normal day actually unfolds. You sit down to work. You open your laptop. Within seconds, your attention starts splitting. One tab becomes 5. 5 becomes 10. A message comes in. You check it, then another. You switch tasks. You come back. You try to refocus. Nothing feels extreme. Nothing feels like a breakdown. It just feels slightly off. That low-level friction most people ignore is where everything begins. Because while you think you're just getting distracted, your brain is doing something else entirely. It's scanning, constantly, quietly, automatically. You're not just reading an email. You're reading the tone behind it. You're not just waiting for a reply. You're interpreting the delay. You're not just working on a task. You're monitoring how stable everything around you feels. And this happens so fast. You don't even notice it. So you compensate. You try to organize more. You try to plan more. You try to control more variables. You tell yourself that if everything is structured perfectly, you'll finally feel focused. But the more you try to control everything, the more fragile your focus becomes. Because the real issue isn't external chaos. It's internal sensitivity to disruption. Your system is not built to ignore noise. It is built to detect it. That's why small things feel bigger than they should. That's why a minor change can throw off your entire rhythm. That's why you can sit in front of your work for hours and still feel like you didn't truly focus. You're not lazy. You're overloaded. Not with tasks, but with signals. And the hardest part is, this pattern feels normal. It feels like your personality. Like you're just someone who overthinks or someone who needs structure. But it's not identity. It's conditioning. A system that was trained to stay alert in environments where staying alert once mattered. The problem is, that same system doesn't know when to stop. At some point, you start noticing a pattern that doesn't make sense. You can handle big problems almost too well. A major setback happens, something serious, something that should overwhelm you. And instead of panicking, you become clear, focus, you think in steps, you move forward. You function, but then something small breaks. A delayed message, a change in plan, a minor inconvenience that objectively doesn't matter. And suddenly, your system reacts harder than it should. There's tension, irritation, a quiet sense of losing grip. That contradiction is the clue, because it reveals something most people never question. Your brain is not optimized for importance. It is optimized for familiarity. Big chaos feels familiar. Uncertainty feels familiar. Pressure feels familiar. So when something major happens, your system recognizes the pattern. It says, I've been here before, and it switches into a mode. That feels almost natural, but small disruptions are different. They don't match the pattern. They don't feel predictable. And more importantly, they interrupt your sense of control. And control is not just a preference. It's the structure your system uses to feel safe. So when a small plan changes, your reaction isn't about the plan. It's about what the change represents, a loss of predictability. A moment where your system can't immediately map what happens next. That's why the reaction feels disproportionate. Not because you're overreacting, but because your system is protecting something deeper. Once you see this, the narrative shifts. It's no longer, why am I like this? It becomes, what system am I running? And that question changes everything. You don't fix this by forcing yourself to be calmer. You don't fix it with more discipline. Because the problem isn't behavior on the surface. It's the system underneath it. So instead of trying to control your reactions, you redesign the environment your brain operates in. A simple framework to start. Reduce, anchor, allow. First, reduce unnecessary inputs. Your brain is already scanning more than needs to. So adding more information doesn't make you productive. It makes you fragmented. Close extra tabs. Limit how often you check messages. Keep your workspace visually simple. The goal is not perfection. The goal is fewer signals competing for your attention. When the environment is quieter, your system has less to react to. Second, anchor your day to a few stable actions. Not a perfect routine, not an optimized schedule. Just 2 or 3 repeatable behaviors that happen the same way every day. You start work at the same time. You begin with the same type of task. You end your day with a simple shutdown ritual. These anchors give your system something predictable to hold on to. Not control over everything, just stability in a few key points. And that stability reduces the need to constantly scan for what might go wrong. Third, allow controlled uncertainty. This is the part most people avoid. Instead of trying to eliminate disruption, you introduce small amounts of it on purpose. You change a minor plan. You leave a gap in your schedule. You delay a response without immediately fixing it. Nothing extreme, just enough to show your system that when things shift, nothing breaks. Over time, this recalibrates your sensitivity. Your brain learns that not every change requires a reaction. If you imagine this as a stick figure, it's simple. The figure sits at a desk with 10 arrows pointing at it. Messages, tasks, noise. In the old system, it tries to block every arrow. In the new system, most arrows are removed. A few remain. And the figure doesn't fight them. It just lets them pass. That's the shift. Not controlling everything, just needing to control less. If you stay with this system long enough, the change doesn't feel dramatic. It feels quiet. You don't wake up as a completely different person. You don't suddenly become perfectly focused. But something subtle starts to shift in the background. The constant scanning begins to fade. Not entirely, but enough that you notice the space it leaves behind. You sit down to work and your attention doesn't split as quickly. There are fewer internal interruptions, fewer invisible pulls. You still notice things, but they don't hook you the same way. Small disruptions stop feeling like threats. A delayed message stays just a delayed message. A change in plan becomes an adjustment, not a problem. You recover faster. Sometimes, you don't even react at all. And the most noticeable difference isn't productivity. It's energy. You're no longer spending it on anticipating everything that could go wrong. You're no longer managing every tiny variable just to feel okay. That quiet tension that used to sit in the background starts to loosen. So the same amount of effort begins to go further. You don't need more discipline. You don't need more hours. You just have fewer leaks. And over time, that compounds. You build trust in your own system. Not because it's perfect, but because it's stable. You know where your attention goes at the start of the day. You know how you reset when things drift. You don't rely on motivation to begin again. You just return to the anchors. That consistency creates something most people are chasing without realizing it. Not intensity, not bursts of productivity, but reliability. And once your system becomes reliable, progress stops feeling like a fight. The system you're running right now once helped you survive. It made you aware. It made you adaptive. It kept you functional when things were unstable. But survival systems are not designed for long-term living. They are designed to react, not to rest. And if you keep using the same system in a different environment, it starts to work against you. Not in obvious ways, in subtle ones. You feel slightly tense for no clear reason. You overreact to small disruptions. You struggle to fully switch off, even when nothing is wrong. So the goal isn't to remove that system completely. It's to update it. To keep the awareness, but reduce the constant scanning. To keep the structure, but loosen the need for control, because you are not in the same conditions anymore, and your system just hasn't caught up yet. You don't need to become someone new. You just need a system that matches the life you're actually living now. Something simpler, something quieter, something sustainable. Because real progress doesn't come from pushing harder. It comes from removing what's quietly draining you every day. If you've ever felt stuck in this loop, comment system. And if you want to build focus without burning out, subscribe. We'll fix it. One system at a time.